A foiled plot to kidnap a sitting U.S. governor right before the election. The second presidential debate is up in the air. And party like it's 1978. Fleetwood Mac and Van Halen roll the charts. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, October 9th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hi, Carlo.
Happy Friday, Jill. So I was thinking yesterday, while I was on my daily walk, about the sort of like crazy news times we're living in. And I figured out what it feels like. It feels like we're living in this opening montage of one of those like post-apocalyptic movies where it's just, the first scene is just like a smash cut of newscasters reading all these scary headlines. And then the camera like pans up to, an overgrown, desolate Times Square or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I actually do. And I kind of agree. And it just gets crazy. It's like it doesn't end in the craziness. Yeah. So one of the crazier headlines in a crazy year, the FBI says that it has thwarted an attempt to abduct Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. This is part of a violent far-right overthrow of the government. Federal agents charged 6 Michigan men with plotting to kidnap Whitmer, including going so far as to surveil her summer home. The men were allegedly discussing detailed plans of the plot unknowingly with an FBI informant. They were going to hold a so-called treason trial for Whitmer. A lot of their anger came from her decision to shut down the state at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, in particular gyms in the state.
Oh, I hadn't heard the thing about gyms. That's interesting. I think these guys had met at one of these anti-lockdown rallies back in April. If you remember, this was when this really at the height of the sort of like anti-lockdown backlash. This is when the president was tweeting things like "Liberate Michigan." Yeah, Jill, I mean, one rule of thumb I've learned from sort of my years in the news business is always just be skeptical of anything the FBI announces when it comes to foiled plots. It's very often, especially when it comes to terrorism, it's some stupid kid somewhere who like wanted to blow up a building but has no way of actually doing it, and then he serendipitously meets a bomb maker with like all the necessary supplies and wherewithal who happens to be an FBI informant. That being said, this doesn't appear to be quite that. These guys seem like they were potentially just as stupid, but a little bit further along in the actual planning process, which sort of differentiates this from a lot of these cases. Another rule of thumb, the most dangerous terrorists are not the ones who write group text messages to each other that say things like, "Hey guys, are you ready for the kidnapping today?" as one of these yahoos did.
You know what, though, Carlo? I wouldn't dismiss this as quickly as you are, because, some experts have actually said the fact that the FBI didn't wait until after the election to make these arrests shows you that they actually thought that this was potentially close to happening. I was a reporter in Michigan for a long time. I actually,
oh right, yeah,
I was there. I was the politics reporter at the CBS station in Lansing, Michigan, when Jennifer Granholm was the governor, and Gretchen Whitmer was just, she was in the state legislature, but you could tell that she was going places. Like you knew, I'm sure you've had that in your life where you've interviewed someone and you're like, this is a politician that, they're going somewhere. So you kind of knew that her career was just sort of starting. On that note, sorry, a friend of mine who's still at that station wrote a really good post on social media, just talking about, actually this being one of the most frightening days that he's had as in the business. And he said he could like see the fear in in Gretchen Whitmer's face during this press conference because he was there. Remember, Michigan actually has a, he said he just like felt bad for her, and she even said, this is not what you sign up for. That you're going to get, that you're kind of a target and maybe a target of a little bit of hatred when you are a governor or a politician, but this is next level. And remember that Michigan, it actually has, it does have this history of having these militia groups. This group in particular, they called themselves the Wolverine Watchmen. I want to note Whitmer thanked the authorities for breaking up this attempt, and she did place some blame on the president for providing this rallying cry for the men, who did meet at one of these anti-lockdown protests.
You're right, and I shouldn't have. I don't mean to dismiss it, and you're right that if I, if she were like my mother or something, it would be, I would be scared. You're right. She's a public servant. Like this is not something that any public servant, regardless of party or anything, deserves to have to wake up to. But it's also, Jill, this is a good time to remember that the FBI has singled out far-right anti-government domestic terrorism, which is essentially what this is, as one of the single greatest threats facing the country. So it's just, it's good to remember that there's a lot of this sort of stuff out there, right?
So the fear here from security experts is that there's going to be copycats. So just like you have with school shootings, right. It used to be that if you were kind of this rogue vigilante or potential domestic terrorist, you were likely alone sitting at home. But now experts say because of social media platforms, yep. It's just very easy for these like-minded individuals to connect. So they're increasingly concerned as well that a Biden win would trigger more of these attempted attacks. And the irony here as well is that, President Trump constantly tweets and talks about law and order. But in this case, this group also looking to attack the police. They wanted to storm the state capitol. If you read the affidavit, it says they wanted to storm the state capitol and they wanted to use Molotov cocktails to destroy police vehicles. So, they were actually apparently quite far along in this, but the fear here is this is just kind of the beginning of what we could potentially be seeing.
Yeah, it's scary stuff, right? It's just, I just worry. I worry about what's going to happen after the election, and I don't mean to scare people, but it's just one of those things that continues to keep me up at night, Jill.
Meanwhile, the second presidential debate is up in the air immediately after the debate commission. So this unfolded pretty quickly yesterday morning after we wrapped up with the podcast. So the debate commission announced that October 15th debate scheduled for next week was going to be virtual, given that the president is potentially still contagious with COVID-19. Immediately after that, the president said, that's not going to work for him. He won't be participating, in a virtual debate. He was actually doing a phone interview with Maria Bartiromo over on Fox Business. And so then the Biden campaign said that it would do a town hall with ABC News that night. Instead, the Biden campaign originally said, sure, we'll do a remote debate, a virtual debate. So then the White House physician said the president is cleared to resume public engagements as of tomorrow. So now the Trump campaign is asking that the debate go back on in person. So this was just like a crazy few hours of is the debate happening? Weird.
But Jill, this is why I continue to disagree with people who say that President Trump is good at politics. So Mike Pence, the vice president, right, by all accounts, he did anywhere from fine to great at the vice presidential debate, depending on who you ask. He got good reviews from conservatives in the media. That was sort of the storyline going into the news cycle yesterday. And what did President Trump do? He immediately trampled all over that coverage by just giving a straight up insane phoner to Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, as you mentioned, in which he said he wouldn't do the debate. He also called Kamala Harris, who is a sitting United States senator, a monster. He called her a monster twice. He called himself a perfect physical specimen who was extremely young. So, I mean, it's just like, he doesn't do himself any favors, right? Like he could have had a good news cycle going in there. Like Pence did a nice job. They were looking forward to the next debate. If it was virtual, so be it. And he just sort of blew it up because that's kind of what he does.
So it was funny. That part about him being a perfect physical specimen, who was extremely young. I don't know if you caught it, but Maria Bartiromo, this was a very friendly phone interview. She actually chuckled because it was almost like you thought he was kidding. Like, you thought he was being sarcastic.
It's very hard to tell sometimes if he's trying to be sort of like subversive but I don't think that he is, because he's not. He's funny in a lot of ways, but he's not funny in like a knowing way, right?
The president, by the way, also spoke to Sean Hannity at length last night, but he didn't. So Sean Hannity, to his credit, was pressing him on when the last time he tested negative for the coronavirus was. The president would not say. He said he would likely get a test today, but he also said that he plans to hold a rally tomorrow in Florida in person.
That is insane, right? Can we just agree that is insane? Look, back to the debate briefly. I don't know why Joe Biden would believe anything they say about the president's health and the timeline about when he tested negative. It is very likely that President Trump was infected with the coronavirus at the last debate. Another way of thinking about that, and this is not hyperbole, is that the Trump campaign was perfectly fine with doing something that could have potentially killed the Democratic nominee. Seriously, if you think about it that way. As for this next debate, I mean, look, Joe Biden should have just been like, look, if the president doesn't want to come, that's his call. I'm going to be on the stage. I'll be happy to answer questions from the American people for 90 minutes in prime time. So I guess he sort of is saying that by doing this ABC
That is
News.
What he's saying, right?
I guess, but I think he should have just been like, I'm going to the debate. I'll be at the town hall debate. So if you don't want to come, you don't have to come. I'll take all the airtime myself. So I don't know. I think that this debate will end up happening, although I don't know if it'll happen in person or not. Again, I would not want to be on a stage with President Trump. He has COVID, right?
Well, to your point about if he had it while he was at the last debate, which was Tuesday. He kind of alluded to the fact in one of these phoners yesterday that he thinks that he got it at this meeting that he had with Gold Star families, and that was the weekend prior to the debate. Right.
Also, by the way, brilliant political savvy there is blaming getting sick on the family members of dead soldiers. The guy's a brilliant politician.
You know what? You say that, Carlo. He's the president. He is. He did something right to get to where he is right now.
Of course, and he's
in
not
terms of his political, and just on pure political acumen.
I'm not saying he's not a savvy politician in a lot of ways, and he knows how to get his base going. But the guy's down 10 points with a month to go, and he's ill with the coronavirus in the White House, blaming it on Gold Star families. I don't know.
Okay, something else that we have to watch today and this weekend. Hurricane Delta has strengthened to a Category 3 storm. It's expected to make landfall along the U.S. Gulf Coast later today. Forecasters are expecting the system's going to weaken a bit before it hits, but they're warning that this storm surge, winds and rain will still be destructive.
Yeah, so this is I think we said this yesterday, right? This is the 6th Gulf Coast tropical hit this year. Just unbelievable. So the area most at risk, this is the latest National Hurricane Center forecast. It's sort of southwest Louisiana, so a little bit further west of New Orleans, but this includes Lake Charles, right? This is the city that is still recovering from Hurricane Laura's landfall, which was 6 weeks ago now. Many homes in southwest Louisiana, including in Lake Charles, Jill, they're still covered with blue tarps, right? They got really hit hard by that storm, and they just haven't had the time to be able to get back on their feet. So that's the thing that worries me. Residents in Lake Charles are being asked to secure as much of the debris that still remains on the ground as they possibly can, because again, just when you think about something with 100-mile-an-hour winds, if you have a bunch of like plywood or lumber or just whatever in your yard, that could become dangerous flying projectiles. So that's something we got to watch today for sure. And just let's just say a little prayer for these guys. Like this year has been hard enough for us without having to deal with hurricane landfalls, and these poor folks are just getting it from every which way, right?
Some quick breaking news just coming out of Stockholm in the last few minutes. The World Food Program has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for its work combating global hunger. The Nobel Committee recognizing the UN agency for its efforts in a year when the pandemic has led to a surge in the number of people going hungry around the world.
Yes, this is actually a little bit of a surprise. I had written this as because usually these come out around 7 a.m. Eastern, so I had written us doing something on this about sort of like who the favorites were. The favorites were the WHO, Greta Thunberg, and our girl Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who I was actually.
You love her.
I love her, but I was rooting for her. Just the combination of her response to the Christchurch terror attack last year, as well as her handling of the pandemic. That's not to say, I mean, the World Food Program, one of the great organizations in the world, and just congratulations to them. Like, this is the world needs a group like this more now than ever, right?
Yeah, and by the way, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, she also had a baby while in office. She took a maternity leave, one of the first women leaders to ever do that. So she is a trailblazing politician.
And I know that
sure.
I know we've said this before, and it's maybe a little hack to say it, but it's not a coincidence that the leaders who have responded to the coronavirus pandemic around the world are women, right?
100%. Okay, if you've ever wanted to move to New York City, now might be the time. And if you live here and you're looking for a new place or you're thinking about re-signing your lease, take note, there are deals to be had. Inventory is at its highest level ever. Rents are lower than they've been in 7 years across Manhattan. Listings have tripled over the last year. And that means that virtually everything is up for negotiation as landlords are just trying to keep units occupied.
So the median Manhattan rent, I'm fascinated by this, even though I don't live in Manhattan anymore. It's fallen to $3,036 when you take in all the concessions into account. That's down 11% from last year. Obviously, we know why, right? Pandemic, people are moving out. The city is not in a particularly good shape at the moment. Crime is up, and the tax revenues are down. It's not a great time to live here in that way. But that being said, if you want to live in New York and this is the time to do it, incentives are being offered everywhere, to your point. Free months, free City Bike memberships. I heard one building is giving away a year Equinox membership. Another one is giving away free rent for the rest of the year. And this is happening in other cities. It's not just New York. San Francisco rents are down some 20%. The rental market in that city has just collapsed. So Joe, look, the rental markets in a city is entirely dependent, I think, on the timeline and the efficacy of a vaccine. I just don't think offices are going to force people back until there's widespread vaccine distribution, right? And until that happens, people are going to not want to live in big cities, I think.
The publication The City had an article out actually this morning where they talked to some moving companies, and it sounds like, at least anecdotally from what that the exodus of people leaving Manhattan is over. So these moving companies at the height of the pandemic could not keep up with demand. Like people leaving the city, packing up their stuff and getting the heck out of there. And now it's mostly, they say, moves within the city or basically it's moves within the city or if people are renovating and they need to move somewhere. So perhaps that exodus finally slowing down. But they say I don't count New York City out, and I don't ever count Manhattan out. And I do think that once, to your point, we have a vaccine, I think there is going to just be this pent up demand for just being close to people, right, and having contact. Yeah. And I miss. I mean, look, I'm home today. I'm usually in the office now. It's like almost neither here nor there because no one's in the office. Like I miss the office with people in it. Just, I was actually,
I missed the subway at rush hour. I never thought I'd say that. I actually do.
I don't. Okay. And finally,
But Joe, I do want to say on this note, because there could be some good that comes from this, right? I mean, Manhattan, San Francisco, Manhattan, these cities have gotten way too expensive for regular people to live in. So, if something good can come of this, maybe it's folks out there, who just graduated college and they wanted to move to the city, but they couldn't afford it. Maybe they're an artist or a musician or something. They're trying to start their own business, and now they have it's a little bit easier for them to do so. So that could be good, right?
Yeah. Okay. And finally, what year is it? Take a look at iTunes Top 100, and you can ask yourself if we are actually living in perhaps 1978. Fleetwood Mac's Dreams is the #1 song in the country, a third of the charts taken up by Van Halen. Dreams has been climbing the charts ever since that viral TikTok video, and fans are rocking out, of course, to old Van Halen hits like Jump after the death of the founding member, Eddie Van Halen.
It's fascinating to me how social media sort of drives pop music now. It used to be the other way around, right? Like, it's also just kind of, I think it's really cool to see. One of the cool things about social media is seeing old music be rediscovered by kids in real time. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was that viral video a couple months ago of those two brothers. I think they were hearing Phil Collins in the Air Tonight for the first time, and they were just like, wow, this is awesome. So I think it's cool. And by the way, I've had Dreams because of this story. I've had that song Dreams in my head for 2 weeks and counting. It's just like, my wife and I will just be in the house, just like sort of humming it. It's just, it's fun. It's fun, Jill.
Oh, the kids these days discovering music on social media. All right, let's do a little Love Hate 8 to end the podcast on this Friday. One thing that we love, brainstorming our Halloween costume and just reliving all of those pre-pandemic Halloween parties, and for just a minute, kind of pretending we're not in this predicament that we're in right now.
Yeah. I used to love Halloween. What is Alex? Are you guys going to trick or treat? And if so, does Alex have a costume?
We are not trick or treating, just because of various reasons. But yeah, she's going to go as Peppa Pig.
Oh my God. Yes.
Who she loves. And, I don't think she totally understands what Halloween is yet. So, but I think at school, they're probably going to dress up. So we're going to dress her up as Peppa Pig.
Okay, we all need photos of that, because that's just, my heart is melting right now. Yeah, Halloween's on a Friday this year, so I think it would have been good in a normal year. I was going to go as I've said, sexy Dr. Fauci, but I probably won't. Okay, one thing that we hate, hearing about other people's dreams. Please stop what you're doing and listen as I tell you a story about an event that not only didn't happen, but isn't even bound by the limits of reality, and then tell me what you think it means. This has just always been a pet peeve of mine, and I'm not sort of subtweeting anybody in my life right now, but I don't know. Maybe some people like it, but whenever anyone is like, oh my God, I had this dream last night, I'm immediately just like, oh God. Anybody else?
Carlo, have we ever talked about this? Because I feel the exact same way. It is totally my pet peeve. And not only is it like this, whatever you're talking about didn't happen, but it always involves someone saying something like, so like, it was you, but it wasn't you. And we were there, but it wasn't your house. Like, we were at your house, exactly. But it wasn't your house. And it's like,
what am I supposed to do with that information?
Okay, and one thing that we ate, a mug cake. Have you heard of this? It is a cake, but in a mug. And we're going to give a quick shout out to one of the Cheddar producers, Rebecca, for this one. She's an associate producer who also got engaged this week. So mazel tov, Rebecca. And I'm going to go and I love everything in a mug. I love cereal in a mug, soup in a mug. So cake in a mug, why not?
I'm in. Yeah, I'm totally in. Anything cake related, sign me up.
Okay, everybody, that's what you need to know for Friday, October 9th.
All right, have a good weekend, guys. Be safe.